When the moon was high in the sky and the MacGuffin and Dumbrock clans were finally finished greeting one another, showing off the brawn, and bestowing gifts, Queen Eleanor was famous for her quilted presents, the group sat down at long tables to indulge in a meal of quail, haggis, potatoes, and roast carrots. As their father rose to give his customary toast to friendship and goodwill, the boys eyed one another. Well, Hubert and Hamish did. Hubert had to kick Harris to get his eyes off Alistair, who was seated nearby. I'm glad the MacGuffins and the Dumbrocks could dine together this evening, King Fergus began. At the same moment, Hubert pushed a bowl of potatoes off the edge of the table. It smashed to the floor, and his mother gave him a stern look. Hubert motioned that he'd pick it up. That distraction was all the boys needed to put their plan into action. Hubert crawled under the table, where he'd placed a large crate of giant copper and orange-tipped butterflies he'd collected, and prepared to open it. Meanwhile, Hamish and Harris put a few more coats of their mashed banana and molasses concoction along the bottoms of chairs to attract the insects. All three boys were back in their seats by the time their father held up his goblet and said, "To the Dumbrocks and the MacGuffins." The triplets raised their glasses. "To the Dumbrocks and the MacGuffins." Then they waited. More like they drooled. They could taste victory, and victory tasted better than haggis. Hamish could picture the butterflies leaving the crate and flying up and out from under the table toward the molasses under the chairs and along the walls, creating a spectacular end to their father's speech that would leave Clan MacGuffin breathless. MacGuffins loved special treatment. They were always complaining about Dingwall's lousy dinners. This would put Dumbrock on top, and King Fergus would be crowing about it for years. And then it was happening. The first of the butterflies fluttered up from under the table. Hamish had assumed their father would be just as mesmerized by the insects as the boys were. Instead, their strong, fearless father started to panic. "Butterflies! Giant butterflies!" he cried out, swatting at the air. Hamish's stomach dropped as the people went running, chairs tumbling, clansfolk bellowing at the door. "Dad, they're just insects," Harris tried, but it was no use. People were terrified. Their dad looked like a dancing tatty bogle as he tried to swat at an orange tip that had become embedded in his hair. He took another swipe with his large hand, and the candelabra in front of him tipped over. The whole table went up like a fireball. "No!" their mother cried. "Help!" But before any of them could react, several of the MacGuffin clan threw the table out of the way, jumped on it, and stomped out the flames. The room was silent, full of smoke and people coughing, a few babes crying. Through the haze, Hamish could see his father's chest rising and falling as he stood staring at the crate on the floor and the dripping molasses where the table had been. And he knew. He just knew. King Fergus's eyes locked on his sons. "You three, don't move. Everyone else, out!" The hall emptied very quickly. Their parents looked so angry. Even Malty, the other servants were avoiding coming to clean up the mess. "Of all the foolhardy things to do," Eleanor seethed, "releasing massive insects right when we were about to discuss this escalating feud with Dingwall. How could you boys?" "Such a ridiculous... So many wings," Fergus sputtered. "And what exactly is on my walls and floors?" Eleanor asked, lifting a sticky shoe. "It was Hamish's idea," Hubert blurted out. "He thought of the whole thing. You liked the idea." Hamish's forehead started to sweat along with his underarms as he stared at their mother. "We were trying to create a spectacle to impress MacGuffin." "Oh, you created a spectacle, all right," Mum said. "Harris made the molasses and banana concoction," Hubert cried. "I didn't even know that food attracted butterflies." Maybe if you read a book more often, you would, Harris shouted. Why read when I could learn from actually talking to people? Hubert quipped as he pulled Harris's hair. Harris growled and knocked Hubert into Hamish. Hamish pushed Hubert off him, and Hubert crashed heads with Harris, who stuck his finger in Hubert's eye. Boys, their mother said sternly, but instead of stopping, they turned on Hamish. This is all your fault, Harris said. Look what you've done. Ham was the one who stole your carnation, Hubert added. He hid it in our room. Hubert, Hamish said, his heart beating fast. Silence! The Queen's face turned a nasty shade of violet. Hamish contemplated running, but his mother had proved to be fast in the past. For lads who keep saying how grown up they are, you continue to act like we babes. Yes, King Fergus parroted what your mother said. Hubert, this family does not sell each other down the river, Mum said. And Harris, scholars do not spread molasses on the floor. Harris hung his head, and Hamish, the mastermind behind the butterflies. She touched his chin, and her voice softened a bit. Oh, wee one, what are we going to do with you? If only you could put that imagination to good use. She shook her head. Your father and I had considered letting you three pursue your passions this summer, but this act of recklessness has proven you're not ready. But Mum, Harris tried, and she shushed him. Not ready, King Fergus echoed. You lads need some discipline. I'm ready for discipline, said Hubert, puffing at his chest. Their mum scoffed. Ugh, you think you're ready for battle, behaving the way you did tonight? You are not ready to train with the clansmen, Hubert. Mum! Hubert cried. Hamish felt faint. Things were spiraling fast. King Hubert crossed his arms. Not ready at all, he agreed. You three need to understand what real work is, their mother went on. Yes, Fergus nodded. Hard work, I agree. Exactly. That's why I think we should send you to Aunt Freya's for the summer break. Yes. Wait, what? Fergus's eyes bulged out of his head. To great Aunt Freya's? No! All three boys cried. Mum, no, Herbert pleaded. Last time Great Aunt Freya visited, she expected us up before sunrise because they were best hours of the day. When the moon is still high and the sun has yet to appear, that's when workers find the most cheer, Harris echoed their great aunt saying. And she makes us help with her embroidery, Hamish moaned, which really means hours of holding her tapestries up and getting stuck by needles while she drones on about the good old days, which are usually just stories about other things she embroidered. You know none of us could sit still for that long, Hubert pointed out. It's true, King Fergus agreed. They get their energy from me. I hate when she visits. Eleanor cleared her throat, and the king backpedaled. I just mean, Eleanor, my love. Don't you think this punishment is a bit harsh? Not at all, Eleanor insisted. Aunt Freya has been talking about replacing her rushing. I think a few weeks of helping an elderly woman redo the floors of her home, of waking up early and sewing with her, would teach these three a lesson about discipline. Not the rushes, Hamish begged, feeling himself go faint. Aunt Freya has a dozen dogs and a cow she keeps inside. Do you realize how foul her rushes must smell? I can't hold up tapestries in conditions like that, Harris seconded. Hubert cleared his throat, and it sounded like a gag. The gag kept going, and they all realized King Fergus was retching too. The Queen wasn't swayed. It's settled, she said. We will send word to Aunt Freya that you're coming. Perhaps she can make you grow up as you so desperately claim you to want. Now off to bed, the lot of you. The boys said nothing. When their mother was riled up, there was no arguing with her. Hamish walked slowly behind Harris and Hubert, climbing one of the back staircases to the room, which smelled smoky despite its being several floors above the dining hall. The air felt thick between the ash, the dark sky, and the moon hidden behind clouds that brought the threat of rain. Hamish had heard Harris talk about the astronomical charts he studied, and how this summer would be very rainy, which meant more time stuck indoors with Great Aunt Freya. Boom! A pillow, followed by a book, came flying at him. He ducked, but the flying items continued. "You ruined our entire summer!" Harris sounded, angrier than Hamish had ever heard him, which was surprising considering Harris had once threatened to hang Hamish off the roof of the castle for dyeing his hair blue while he slept. Hubert sent his scabbard flying across the room, and Hamish ducked again to watch it sail over his head and get lodged in their door. "Because of your silly prank, Dad doesn't think I'm ready to ride with the clan." He pointed a finger at Hamish. "You're doing all the floors to yourself, and sitting closet to Aunt Freya's needle." "Agreed," Harris said, and his hands were shaking. "If I can't study with scholars this summer, then I am doing nothing. Good luck getting everything at Aunt Freya's done by yourself." Hamish closed his eyes for a moment, wondering how he could fix things with his brothers. This was a dire situation, and a potentially smelly one. Forget the floors. Aunt Freya didn't smell like a flower herself. He couldn't imagine spending weeks being used as a human pincushion and listening to the world's most boring tales with no escape in sight. How could he get them out of this mess and keep Harris and Hubert from hating him for life? He needed a miracle, that's what. He needed magic. He needed the will-o'-wisps. Hamish blurted out. "The willow what?" Hubert cocked his head to one side. "He said the wisp." Harris snapped. "You do know what wisps are, don't you?" "Yes," Hubert huffed. "The wisp helped Merida to the witch, who turned Mum and us into bears by giving her—" His eyes widened. "A spell." "Hamish, you dog! Just when I want to kill you, you surprise me." "Oh no," said Harris, backing away. "We are not going down that path. It could bring danger and ruin. I hated being a bear. I don't want to do that again." "Neither do I," Hubert agreed. A Highland cow wouldn't be so bad, though. They have epic horns." "No," Harris cut him off. "No witch. No animal transformations. No tempting fate. You know what Mum says. The wisps can give you a chance to change your fate, but they can also send you on a path of doom. It's too dangerous." "You want us to go to Great Aunt Freya's for the entire summer?" Hamish reminded them, and the other two were quiet. He knew that was a no. "Then this is the only way we can fix things. We can find the wisps, let them lead us to the witch, and we can make things right with Mum and Dad."